What's up, YouTube? It's been a long time coming, but here we are, late to the party. Today I'm going to be doing somewhat of a cinematography / color breakdown on a commercial that I DP'd earlier this year. So if you want to hear me ramble about note structures and scenes for the next 30 minutes, you're in the right place. This commercial was shot on the Alexa Mini in the red KOMODO paired with the light Sumalux Cs. I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not in any way a professional colorist. I just thought it'd be cool to show the internet some of my note structures and also talk about these scenes and how we shot them. So let's head up to the computer and run through some of these note structures. So here is my timeline. It is just my color timeline. Obviously I didn't edit this. The guys that directed and edited this are some of the most talented dudes I know. John and Jeff, they both own a company called Unrivaled Films. I'll link their socials below, but anyways, I did not edit this. I just DP'd and colored it. So this is kind of what I get when I color a project. The director will, or in this case the director, because he's also the editor, he will send me a ProRes, usually a quad 4 file, depending on what codecs we shot in. So send me a quad 4. Resolve has a really cool scene cut detect, where it will detect the scenes and then cut the timeline. And then it looks like this. So this layer here is just the final version with bars and stuff. Obviously, if there's an aspect ratio, everything's taken off. All the titles are taken off. All the effects are taken off. And it's pretty much just clips on a timeline. So we'll hop over here in the color tab and we'll go through this timeline a little bit. We had an amazing drone team on this. Our drone pilot's name was Nick, and I'm pretty sure they were flying the Inspire 3. We'll start with this first scene here. Commercial starts off in the city. My note trees are fairly simple here. I like to build out like a power grade for everything and then just use it for the whole project. I know some people color in scenes and just kind of lay a grade over the whole scene and call it a day. I don't know why, but I just like going into each individual frame, and as I build power grades, you can come over here to my stills gallery and kind of see everything. So I tend to like that more than kind of throwing a grade on a whole scene, which is also works. It's just a workflow that I like doing. A lot of these shots were shot at white balance of 5600. The great thing about these new drones, especially the Inspires, they shoot in 10-bit color. Having that color depth really helps because when you have something that isn't exactly the color balance that you want in post, you can obviously come in and change that. The way I typically start my node structures is a color space transform here on the end, and then a LUT conversion just to I think I had it already. Yeah, all right. And then I'll come over to the beginning here. I typically like to throw denoise on things, especially when it's shot at night or in a dark setting. Second node is just my primary wheels, so this is a lot of the whole white balance thing that I was just talking about. So you can see when I toggle this on, it kind of corrects everything and makes it just like kind of a bluish tone. So the glow node, I mean, you can do a ton with this, but it really helps add contrast while not crushing the image, if that makes sense. So typically what I'll do is I'll come down here to the composite type and I'll change it from normal to soft light. And then you can kind of just play with like the threshold here, which is kind of like how much the image is getting affected by the glow itself. And you can just see here when I toggle on and off this node, it kind of just, I don't know, it adds a little bit of magic touch to an image that I really like. And I just have really gone to that for pretty much every project. Most drone shots, they come out pretty sharp, so adding a little blur just helps to give it that filmic look. And then here's just the vignette. Nothing crazy. The vignette is just to draw your eye where I want you to look in the frame. So in this frame particularly, I added the vignette to just kind of draw your eye to the center of the frame. All these node trees are pretty much the same here. So this shot was Alexa Mini. We rented out, it was just like an Airbnb, I think, or a peer space in a building in downtown. We kind of wanted it to look like Gotham a little bit. Node tree is not too insane here. We have some denoise here at the beginning. In this compound node here, we just have blur and grain just compounded into one node. Next, we just have another compound node with a color space transform inside of it, basically just taking the log C to Rec 709. Next, we have our halation. Not a ton going on here, just brightening up the sky a bit, and then adding some stuff in these little lights here. Obviously this speaks for itself. WB white balance node. I think I took this to like a more warmer look. Yeah, I just brought my white balance up to like 530. Brought my tint up to like 5. Maybe I thought it was a little too green here. Yeah, I didn't want to go for like the teal look. Obviously it is pretty teal, but I brought my tint up a bit towards the magenta side just to take out some of that green. A lot of these node structures you'll see I put a highlight node below the exposure node, and I've done that for a long time too, where I basically just qualify the highlights. So I think here I'm just qualifying the sky because it was just like a little hot for me, and then I will bring that down once it's qualified. Okay, and then here we have saturation curves. Most of the time on saturation curves I would just go over to my Luma versus Sat and then clean up the shadows and highlights. So I'll put a point at the first bar on each side, and then I'll just bring it all the way down on my shadows and highlights to make sure that my shadows are like close to pure black and my highlights are close to pure white, and they don't get too muddy. Again, that's different for everything. Maybe you want your shadows muddy, maybe you want your highlights muddy, but this scene particularly, I did not. And then here's the magic touch. So our film print, we're going with the 2383 D60 here. It's just a Kodak film look. And you can see when I turn this on and off, that is like the whole shebang. It's like the fireworks go off in this one node. Like I said, all these city shots are KOMODO. This is really where the KOMODO came in handy. I think on a lot of these too, I wasn't even running around with a monitor. I literally was just like monitoring off the little 3-inch screen on the top. This is probably on the 75. Same node structure here. Our grain prep, literally everything's the same. The print foam is the same. The only thing that's changing are the levels and these like exposure nodes, the white balances, all this stuff. This may have been on sticks, but a lot of these city shots are handheld, especially when we get to this moving stuff over here. The goal of this commercial was to kind of capture the essence of the city as a whole. This was a commercial for the NASCAR race in downtown Chicago, so the city was obviously a huge part of this commercial. This might have been my favorite drone shot in the whole film here. The way that they reveal the street from behind this building is pretty wild. Like I said, all these nodes are pretty much doing the same thing, especially in the drone shots here. Here we're just in like it's actually a super small warehouse. It wasn't that big. We had these huge windows up in the top of the building here. So we planned it to where the sun would be coming in and hitting our subject and hitting the car. We also had haze, because who doesn't love haze? And it just really created these insane light rays with the sun coming through the window here. Again, no tree stays pretty much the same throughout all of these. You can really see where this highlight node affects the image here just because these windows are blown out because of the sun. But it works, it kind of tricks your eye because you know the sun's coming through that window, so you know it's going to be blown out, like even to your natural eye. And then bringing down those levels a little bit, you can see in the waveforms over here, just bringing down those levels really helps with just like balancing out the image, not having this huge punch in your face in the top of the image. You can also come over here to the vignette and draw a little shapey shape around your subject and, you know, draw your audience's eye a little bit more to where you want them to look. And then also the glow node. Just insane how much natural contrast that produces. Also, these lenses flare so nicely. I'm not sure if I mentioned it yet either, but this scene, we had a crane, pretty much a techno crane with an extending arm. Mounted the Mini on that. Our operators, Tim and Eon, really killed it here with the movements that we kind of instructed them on and like what we wanted. Same node structure here. Everything's the same in all these. I really love the flare here, like I said. So bringing the highlights down it kind of draws your eye more towards the center of the frame and towards that flare, I think, because there is so much of a highlight distraction up here in the corner of the frame. You can really see here where our glow node comes into play. In our vignette node, I did a little more on this one, I think. So obviously, first off, you have your shape here to draw the person's eye to the center of frame. And then I went over here and tracked it with the car to just try to make sure that it stayed in the same place. Since the camera is kind of moving and tilting up at the same time, you just want to make sure that that shape stays in the same place in frame. And then I came over here to my blur radius and just brought that up a little bit to just blur out. I think it was because these stairs over here, if I remember correctly, the stairs were drawing my eye away from the center frame. And just from our Rec 709 conversion to all these other nodes, it's just pretty insane. Obviously sticking with that same print film emulation. And then all these shots were just super great in my opinion, just because we had that crane and just the movements that we could get with it in combination with the way that John and Jeff edited it in post. They really like to keyframe and like make post movements, so just being able to have that movement on set but also have the option to do some post movements. You could see here like our frame moves as the shot goes. So I really like this shot too, the way that those lenses render color and then how natural everything looks, and they're already warm from the start, so just to add warmth in there and just really make those lenses shine here, I was just pretty amped on how this stuff came out. I'll go through this one last shot here. Our directors on set had a really good idea to have our car going under the crane as the crane raised up and kind of panned down towards it. So this shot was really cool because we put the 16mm on, I think, and had our car just coming at the camera really fast, as fast as he could in that small tight space. I just really love the way that the haze is allowing the light to kind of hit everything in here. Adding that haze really gives it some atmosphere, and just having those light rays come through the window and like the sun where it's at, I think just everything worked perfectly in this scene, especially in this frame particularly. So you can see with the bars. See, the light turns green and the old boy punches it. Yeah. And then it goes into some more drone shots and some quick cuts here towards the end. And then we fade to our Chicago NBC Peacock. Anyways, I'm gonna end it there. Thanks for watching this video. Pretty sure I just rambled for 30 minutes about a commercial that we shot almost 6 months ago, so that's great. It's cool looking at this timeline now because I haven't really pulled it up in a while. I want to do this more on projects that are out and I can talk about, so hopefully I will see you guys in the next one.